Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast hosted by the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network. Bo and Brant coming at you once again live on the YouTube channel. Brant, I know last week we kind of wrapped up our wide receiver segment, took a week off between that and our tight ends. We'll get those out at some point. I know the consensus rankings for the Fantasy Holics page are getting ready to come down. But that, if you want to be able to see those, that brings me to my next point. We did have a mishap. The original page ended up getting hacked. We lost access to that. We're coming back bigger and stronger than ever. We've got a website coming out, fantasyholics.com. You can go on there, find links to all me and Brant's work, Seth's stuff with Defense Wins Fantasy, all kinds of articles on there, up-to-the-minute news. And then, of course, you're going to want to jump on and join the new Facebook page to stay up to date with information coming from the NFL. Some of the guys that are on our team at the Fantasy Holics are faster than Adam Schefter. I swear there's people that have connections. It goes back to like Ryan Frank at the draft. He knew everybody who was being drafted before Roger Goodell had the card in his hands. So, definitely some good information coming out of the Fantasy Holics page. Definitely worth following on that. So make sure you're jumping over and doing so.
Yeah, that mishap on Facebook. If you guys want to make sure you guys see us live over on every Sunday as we are on Facebook Lives. So make sure you get on there, you follow our page, get back there, follow the new Fantasy Holics page. The mishap was unfortunate, but we, like you said, we're coming back stronger. We're opening up the Facebook. We're getting a new Facebook going. We're getting a website up and running. We got the Instagram and the TikTok going now. We got a little bit of Twitter feeds going too. So we're getting stronger. We're going to build it all back up and make sure you guys get out there and like us on that. And like you hit on, we finished up wide receivers and you went down and watched some soccer down in Atlanta this past week. So we had to take a little break on crunching some numbers. So we wanted to get a little spicy with you guys today. So
I will tell you, Brant, it was a little disheartening to me. I've obviously been to Atlanta for a Falcons game. I've now been to watch Premier League soccer in Mercedes-Benz. And I hate to say that it was a sellout crowd for the Premier League soccer event. And it was like 71,000 folks in the Mercedes-Benz. It was crowded, very warm in there. When I went to the Falcons game, I think the total was 19,000. So quite a difference in percentages of fans coming to those events. But nonetheless, I digress. The Falcons weren't very good that year. Hopefully they bounce back this year. Brant, are you ready to eat?
Let's get the bibs on.
All right, Brant, I don't know about you. Up until like the draft season, which is for me in redraft leagues and rookie drafts, we do ours a little later in the year than a lot of people. But so outside of draft episodes, this episode is one of my favorites of the year. I know you were excited about this one too. It's our hot take episode. It's where we get to come on here and give these people some just extremely passionate takes about things that we believe there's a solid chance of happening this year, Brant. And I know, for me, this one was so easy to get geeked up for.
Absolutely. This is one episode that we normally do once, maybe even twice every single year prior to the season. Some of our takes may not be as spicy, but we always do seem to at least get our spicy takes out there. And it's always fun to do, always fun to talk about, always fun to banter back and forth with what it is. We have each other's names, but we don't have each other's information on our takes right now. So this will be the first time that we're hearing it from each other as well.
Absolutely. Brant, I know last year, I can't remember all of mine, but I know I put out one that I said Cooper Cup would finish outside of the top 10 in wide receiver last year. And I happened to get that one right. It was thankfully due to injury, not thankfully due to injury, but I only got it right because of an injury. So we'll put an asterisk next to that. These ones are things that we're not saying necessarily we believe will happen. We just see there's a solid opportunity for this to take place. And all three of mine, Brant, that I'm going to come at you with, I feel pretty good about for this season.
Yeah, I really like all three of mine here, and one of mine last year was I do remember it because it keeps getting kicked into me. It kicked into me like a dead horse. I said Rashad Bateman was going to be a top 12 wideout. Rashad Bateman might have gotten lucky to see the ball 12 times last year with how many times he was injured.
You hit the nail on the head, bro. He was a top 12 wideout in Baltimore.
Yeah, in Baltimore. He wasn't
Yeah.
even the number one on a team with no wide receivers.
Very, very true. All right, Brant, kick us off with the hot takes. Let's see how spicy you're willing to go here.
I'm going to get this one. Mine's just going to be a little sprinkle here. And it's a guy that was already seen himself inside the top 5 running backs. I'm going Najee Harris, returns to form, returns to a top 3 running back in redraft and dynasty leagues. His name is getting put back up there. His face is getting put back on that pedestal. This man, he was at last year during the preseason, he suffered a foot injury. They were scared it was going to be a Liz Frank. It ended up just being something a little less than that. But he was injured, and that foot bothered him almost all year. That offensive line was atrocious this last year. But what did Pittsburgh go out and do? Pittsburgh went out and revamped that offensive line. They spent their first draft pick on a new offensive lineman. They signed 2 more offensive linemen to go along with the line that had started to get better throughout the year last year. So from weeks 13 to 18, he finished as a top 5 running back as that line started to get to form. Yes, I understand his rookie year, he was with Big Ben, who did nothing but dump the ball off. Well, he's getting another year with Kenny Pickett. That comfortability is there. He's now in the preseason with them. He's already looking more explosive. We saw what he could do, what he's really capable of at the end of last year, weeks 13 through 18, as he finished as a top 5 running back. So he saw 94 targets in 2021. He only saw 53 last year. I believe that's going to go up. The snap percentage for Najee Harris last year. If you remember his rookie year, we were all like, this is atrocious. How is this man seeing 99% of snaps every single game? I don't think the man saw 90% of snaps in a single game last year. His snap percentage is going to go up next year. The usage is that offense is going to be even more potent, even more powerful. I believe that Najee Harris is going to put his name back in the books and be a top 3 back where he was originally out of.
Yeah, Brent, I couldn't agree with you more on this one. I'm a huge Najee fan, and like you hit the nail on the head. They spent all that money to go out and fix up that offensive line, which is going to be good for Kenny Pickett. And when Kenny Pickett's having better success, the offensive line is having better success. That just screams success for Najee. The other thing that you didn't mention, which I think is a huge thing for Najee, is they got a monster of an offensive tackle in the way of a tight end out of the NFL draft, and Darnell Washington. If you remember the video of him throwing that sled like a rag doll, that guy gets in as an extra lineman or just as a down tight end. He's going to be bowling over some linebackers and getting into that next level and just creating more space for Najee. So I'm absolutely all over Najee as the top 5 back this year, Brant. I think the bounce back is real for him this year. I do, like you said, I think the PPR upside goes up with his pass catching. And I do think Jaylen Warren will spell him a decent amount this year. I think Jaylen Warren will be on the field for 12 to 15% of snaps every game. But I think the volume is going to be about the same what it was for Najee, just far more productive with his touches. And I do think that the PPR numbers go up. I think there's more targets, more receptions. I think his carries will be roughly where they were last year. I just think that there's going to be so much better running lanes in Pittsburgh. Again, I think Kenny Pickett takes a huge step forward, which is why I'm willing to buy in more so on Najee having that bounce back. You won't be able to stack the boxes against him.
Correct. And the wide receivers there are all going to be even better than they were last year with Johnson and Pickens. And what have we know from the past with Pittsburgh? They love to pound that ball. Well, guess what? The coaching staff has not changed there in Pittsburgh. They're going to pound the ball. That's why they drafted Najee so high, and that's why they're making sure they protect their asset.
Brant, you may have still been in diapers when Mike Tomlin wasn't the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So
It's probably
yeah,
true.
we're gonna get more of the same out of Pittsburgh this year. So and if you're a Najee owner in Dynasty, you love to see it. So which I know we both love to see that, Brant. We both own Najee in a couple different leagues. So here we go. All right, Brant. My first one, I'm going to come at you. I think this one's going to get a lot of buy-in from you as well. I think initially in the offseason, when I brought up this player's name to you a couple of times, there was a lot of cringe on your face. There was a lot of, holding back vomit, if you will. But then you went and sat down and did the numbers on this player, and you were like, holy crap, I didn't realize how productive he'd been. I think at this point, you probably already know who I'm talking about, but that's Dak Prescott, Brant. I've got Dak Prescott bouncing back to a top 10 quarterback next season. Last year, he finished as quarterback 18, and in his last season, he had a career high in interceptions paired with a career low in completions and yards. Okay, so obviously, all those things spell a terrible season for fantasy. It gave him his worst finish, excluding 2020 when he was injured and only played 5 games. He has CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and now Brandon Cooks, who I still think is a very, very good wide receiver in the National Football League. Should be a season-long upgrade over who he was throwing passes to last season, with the exception of maybe Dalton Schultz, which I think Jake Ferguson coming into his second year is going to have a pretty good role. But I think the biggest thing for Dak Prescott working in his favor is there's no Zeke Elliott on the field. So he's going to be throwing it to a guy with explosive legs in either Deuce Vaughn or Tony Pollard at this point is kind of how things look to be shaping out. Which, Brand, I don't know if you've seen the training camp video of Deuce Vaughn. I know you're a huge fan. Excuse me. Yeah, he looks like a little kid lost out there with pads on.
Just can't catch him.
Correct. And Brand, I wanted to just put these out there. The Fatboyz consensus quarterback rankings, we do have Dak's numbers at 366 completions, 4,179 yards, 27 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 278 rush yards, 6 touchdowns, 316.4 fantasy points. That will have him bounce back into the top 10 next year, and it would have had him in the top 10 in fantasy this year. So I think the bounce back for Dak is real this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I believe it. I'm buying in that. That offense is going to be more throw happy, I think. And I mean, we've already seen them throw happy with Kellen Moore, and then they moved on with offensive coordinators. Mike McCarthy's taken over. I understand he said, I want to get back to the run. Obviously, you don't want to get back to the run because you have an explosive back that takes screens to the house. He's not the guy that's going to be in between tackles, taking those to the house, averaging 7-8 yards a carry. This man is explosive on the outside, and you're going to want to get the ball to the outside of Tony Pollard and Deuce Vaughn. I'm going to continue to beat that horse. I actually already have stock in Deuce Vaughn this year. I absolutely love what he brings to the table for that team too. He's just a little guy that they can't catch. And yes, I have seen the videos. I've been sharing them all through, and it's been a delight for me to watch. But yeah, I think the Dallas Cowboys, I think that offense, and let's think about it. Let's think about who they have to go against. They have to go against the New York Giants, who that offense is, in the upswing of last year. So they got to put up points to stick with them. And then you got to go against Philadelphia Eagles twice a year, who's one of the best, if not the best offense going from last year. So yeah, they have to put up points. They're going to have to hang numbers, and Dak Prescott, I believe, can do it this year as long as they get that lineman back there who's been holding out this offseason.
Yeah, and again, if you saw the Deuce Vaughn things, Brant, you probably saw the CeeDee Lamb reports, where CeeDee Lamb's kind of putting the league on notice, saying, "Hey, Dak's looking for that deep ball. Dak's been accurate with that deep ball. It's going to be a scary season." And again, he's got Michael Gallup, who we've seen flashes, right? We're just waiting for Michael Gallup to put up a complete season together. He's got Brandon Cooks, who's been amazing until he went to Houston. That was a dumpster fire. And now CeeDee Lamb, who, Brent, you and I both have in our top 5 season finish, as well as our top 5 in a dynasty startup finish. So it all points to a great season for Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about Brandon Cooks going to Houston. I mean, yeah, last year was atrocious, but the man was still a top 20 wide receiver prior to last year, where he only played in 13 games. So you're adding this guy, a top 20 fantasy wide receiver, to this offense as the slot guy. He's going to catch a bunch of balls, and he has the ability to really move the chains. And you hit the nail on the head with the deep balls. I absolutely believe in the Dallas offense this year. It's going to be a fun thing to watch.
Absolutely, Brent. All right, hit us with your second.
So with my second one, I have this is going to be an entire offense. I'm going to take my hot take on this. I punched myself a little bit in the face while writing this down on the paper. I'm not a big fan of saying this, but what they did this offseason and everything else, and that is the Denver Broncos offense is going to be more explosive this year. Yes, I know I'm not, ooh, yeah. Well, here's why. Russell Wilson will sustain two top 20 wide receivers. We have not
Okay.
consensusly put our wide receivers together. But I believe that he will sustain two top 20 wide receivers in Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. He gets back to being a top 10, if not a top 7 quarterback in fantasy. You know what? This is a hot take. He will be a top 7 quarterback in fantasy next year. And this Broncos team spent the most money on their offensive line in the offseason, bringing in to rebuild to protect Russell Wilson. He was rushed, he was hit, he was banged up all last season. He didn't miss very many games, if any. I'd have to go back and look. They also traded for Sean Payton. We've seen what Sean Payton can bring to the table with this offense. And so with all that during this offseason, that just shows that they do believe in Russ. They really want to put this offense, and they have to put points on the board in order to compete in that division, regardless of who you're playing. You got 6 games against probably 3 of the top 10 offenses in the NFL. And we already know what the Chargers are capable of. Then they add that new offensive coordinator that's really going to be hanging up points for them. So the Broncos have to do it. Now, here's some of my reasoning why. Jerry Jeudy was a top 12 wide receiver from weeks 11 to week 18 last year. So he already had shown flashes. As Russell got more comfortable in that offense with his weapons, he progressed pretty well with his wide receivers. So I think, Jerry Jeudy has the capability of being a top 12 wideout. It's just Cortland Sutton's getting up there. And I think this is the year that they all put it together. Sutton's been out studying film on Michael Thomas, has been working one-on-one with Sean Payton, learning how to get himself open. And so I see him being probably the reception leader on that team, but Jeudy being the yards and the touchdown leader on that team. So with Sean Payton's offense, we already know, like I said, it's been electric in the past. Then they're getting Javonte Williams, who we all thought was not going to make it back this season. You should get a little flashes of him. I don't see him being a whole workhorse this offseason or this season, but you will have that explosiveness in the backfield as it comes on. And then you have one of the best pass catching backs that they just added in Samaje Perine. We saw how well this man worked in the Cincinnati offense, and now going over, we've seen what Peyton likes to do with his backs and Alvin Kamara. Now you get a guy that has Kamara-like abilities in Samaje Perine to work with this year too, and that's on a 1-year deal, so they're not going to be afraid to really give him the ball and let him get beat around a little bit.
Okay, Brent. So here's I don't know if I can get on board with you as Russ is a top 7 quarterback. I do think Russ bounces back, but if Russ gets any worse than he was last year, he's out of the league. So I do buy into the bounce back. And I think you're right. I think Russ has a top 20, at least one top 20. I think I had both the Broncos just outside the top 20 for me. So in between 20 and 32, somewhere in there, I think they both were for me. So I could see both of them creeping into the top 20 just on touchdown equity, receptions potentially. And then also the other thing is when we get into it, we haven't done them yet, but I just have a feeling Greg Dulcich will be a top 12 tight end for me, which is also going to bode well for a Russell Wilson bounce back. And like you said, if Sean Payton has him doing some checkdowns to his running backs, which I don't know if Russ has ever really checked down a whole lot to like guys like Marshawn Lynch and Chris Carson. I know they had some PPR value, but I'd have to go back and look. I think this year will be a hot career high for Russ with dump downs. So it'll be interesting to see how that helps his fantasy numbers. But again, it can't hurt them. And then also if you look at how the season played out last year for Denver, they were one of the highest rated or highest injury percentage team in the NFL. They dealt with a lot of injuries to skill positions, to offensive linemen. What they already had, what is it, Tim Patrick go down in fear of an ACL this year, Brant. So again, it's going to be big on for Judy and Cortland Sutton, who we both like quite a bit. Obviously, if they're both in our top 36 wide receiver rankings. So I'm not all the way on board with you on this one, but I'm not all the way off board, if that makes sense.
When we did our rankings, I went back while you were talking. I went back. I had mine, just my receivers. I had Judy at 18 and Sutton at 21. So I have it right there. I'm right there. So maybe I got to adjust my numbers a little bit.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Brant. So last week we kind of alluded to this, and we said we were going to bring a new segment every week to you guys, where you can throw your money down and tail us on some things that we're doing on Underdog, who the Fantasy Holics have partnered with. Last week I kind of alluded to it being a money match. Actually, it's a little better than that, Brant. I didn't realize how sweet this was for fans of the Fantasy Holics. But if you use the promo code Holics when you register with Underdog and make your first deposit, they will double your deposit up to $100. So that is a very, very sweet deal there, is to get in and throw some money around on some fantasy stuff on Underdog, which again is a very user-friendly thing. Brant and I love it. We've been using it for a few years prior to the partnership. And I know we're both very excited about this partnership. So Brant, let's play our little ad here, and then we'll come back with our plays of the week. All right, Brant. So again, promo code Holics, up to $100 of your deposit doubled. Very sweet deal here. And if you are somebody that wants to throw some money down on stuff that Brant and I do, we're going to come at you every week with some stuff. Right now, it's going to be season-long plays. As we get into the season, it'll be weekly plays. So we'll keep it fresh for you guys every week. But Brant, I'm going to get us started off. Right now, we've got, if you go on to Underdogs and you go into the Pick'ems tab, there's an option for rivals, and it lets you do some head-to-head stuff. So you get to pick some numbers head-to-head. And the first one I'm interested in is Joe Mixon versus Kenneth Walker for total touchdowns on the season. I took Joe Mixon in this, who they were spotting a half a touchdown to. And here's my thought on this, Brant. I think Joe Mixon's going to have a little bit more PPR upside over the course of the season, specifically with no Samaje Perine. And I do worry that Zach Charbonnet, who's a little bit bigger of a back than Kenneth Walker, may spend some time near the goal line over Kenneth Walker. So it was just enough. I still think Kenneth Walker has a good season. I just think Joe Mixon finishes with more touchdowns, more total touchdowns than Kenneth Walker, Brant.
Okay, I absolutely agree with that. With Walker being banged up already, they're going to take it very, very lightly with him to get him back. Charbonnet is also banged up, but you also still have DJ Dallas there. And Kenny McIntosh is a sneaky, sneaky guy that I think is going to see the field a lot more than a lot of people are thinking. So I absolutely love that. I 100% agree with that pick there of taking Mixon over Kenneth Walker there.
Absolutely.
So with my first one here, I went a little younger quarterbacks here, and with passing touchdowns, I took Desmond Ridder, who they're spotting a half a touchdown to, passing touchdown, to have more passing touchdowns than Anthony Richardson this year. These are just passing touchdowns, not total, because then I might be thinking a little different with how mobile Anthony Richardson is. But I think Desmond Ridder and that Atlanta Falcons offense is going to be very, very potent. I think they're going to put the ball in the air with Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson and Cordell Patterson. And Algiers not a bad pass catcher either. So I'm taking Ridder to have more passing touchdowns than Anthony Richardson this season. I just don't see the weapons there in Indy yet, and I don't see Richardson really inside the 1 or 2 yard line. I think it's going to be more of QB sneaks. And I would have said it's going to be Jonathan Taylor, but we've all seen what's going on with that.
Okay. All right. Fair enough, Brant. We're just gonna be quiet on that Jonathan Taylor thing right now, because I don't want to spend too much time on the episode crying, because he's a very near and dear to my heart player. You know, I really had to fight. I had to way overpay to get him in a trade in our home dynasty league. And I just, I want to see that pay off long term. All right.
I'll keep my mouth shut on the overpay.
All right, thank you. Speaking of a guy we talked about just a little bit ago, Brant, I have Najee Harris versus Damian Pierce in season-long rushing yards. I took Najee Harris in this one, spotting Damian Pierce 25 yards over the course of the season. So Najee has to get a 26 total more yards than Najee for this one to hit. But like we talked about on the cast, Brant, or just a little bit ago on the hot takes, everything's pointing up for Najee. And I really just think that he's going to have a really good season this year. Not to say Damian Pierce can't. I just think Najee is going to be better.
You've been off that train of the Damian Pierce since it started hitting the rail. You started getting on it, then you jump back off it. Well, guess what? I'm jumping off of this thing with you. Everything going up for Najee, everything's pointing down for Pierce this offseason. They got a quarterback that wants to throw the ball. Their wide receivers are looking a little more threatening this year than just Brandon Cooks last year. So I think they're going to put the ball up more. And then they added Singletary there in that backfield. So I don't think it's Pierce's backfield 100% like a lot of people are. And I am jumping off this Pierce train altogether. So I absolutely 100% am behind you on this one here. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to hop on my underdog here and go ahead and throw a little green on that one if I had to guess.
Okay.
So my second one here on underdog, they have Deshaun Watson versus Justin Herbert. They're in rushing touchdowns. They're giving Herbert a half of a rushing touchdown more, but I am taking Watson to have more rushing touchdowns than Herbert this season. I just think that Watson, they'll need Watson to sneak a few in. I think that you'll see some RPOs there in the red zone there, and I think Watson will sneak a few more in, and I just don't see the reason for Herbert to really go in. You have Austin Eckler, you have Quentin Johnston there, you have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I just don't see the need for them to put Herbert really at that much risk.
And we all know Deshaun rushes it in. He gets a little banged up, whatever. He can just go get a massage and
right.
He'll be ready to go for next week, right? So,
I'm sure Cleveland's been paying a personal one for him.
Absolutely. All right, Brant, there you go. There's the picks of the week for us for Underdog. Again, promo code Holics on there to get your money doubled on deposit up to $100. Very excited about that partnership. And again, we'll get into those every Sunday morning as well, Brant. All right.
And we will be, hang on, before we jump back into this, we will be keeping track of what we say, and we will be doing an after-season recap on how we did with our picks. So you guys know how we did, so you guys know if to trail us. Now, on Underdog, you have to put at least 2 or more picks in order to be able to place some on it.
Which is why we're giving them 4 a week, Brant. So we're the hostess with the mostest and rolls right. and in rolls and in picks of the week. Yep. All right, so we just talked about Damian Pierce, how the trains, we're letting it leave the station without us and whatnot. And I'm slowly chasing after it, waving my ticket in the air, saying, "Let me back on, Brant," because I think the Houston Texans are going to have a bad season. I'm not sure they're going to compete in their division. Okay, but Brant, I think they have a top 20 running back this season, the top 36 wideout this season, and a top 15 tight end this season. All right. I think Damian Pierce has a good year. I'm not saying it's going to be as productive as he was last year, but Brant, if you look at it, again, a lot of the ways that I like Najee to get better this year, it's kind of all there for Damian Pierce too, except for there is more competition this year. But CJ Stroud should be better and command a bigger audience than Davis Mills did. The wide receivers are going to be better than what they were last year, with the exception of, I think Brandon Cooks was pretty elite. But I like what I'm seeing right now out of Jonathan Mechie. All right. So I think Damian Pierce finishes as a top 20 running back this season. I think either, okay, Brant, I'm not so outlandish. I'm going to say both, but I think either Nico Collins or the one that I truly think it is, and Jonathan Mechie, make it to the top 36 in this year for the Houston Texans in fantasy standings. And then obviously Dalton Schultz leaving Dallas, going across Texas to Houston. I think he is going to be a huge safety blanket for CJ Stroud. I honestly think I could see Dalton Schultz being a top 5 tight end this year, but a little calmer on it. We're going to say top 15 just because I don't know how much I trust CJ Stroud personally this year. So if these things happen and D'Amico Ryan can turn that defense around quick, we could be talking about a possible upset. I wouldn't be shocked to see these guys chase the Colts and or the Jags in the division. I just don't think Tennessee hangs in this year, even though they added D-Hop. But I'm very excited. I'm not ready to proclaim the Houston Texans to the moon, Brant. They're not my Jets level yet, but I am excited about what I'm seeing in Houston.
Okay. All right. I am turning and walking the other way with that train. I will not jump on that running back wagon. I think Singletary takes over that backfield, and I could see one of them finishing inside the top 30. I don't think it's going to be Pierce this year. I'm jumping off the running back train. I absolutely love their wide receivers there. I do love the wide receivers they added in the draft here. I've loved what I've seen in the preseason training camp with their wide receivers. I will hop on board with that one there. Houston Texans, I don't think they'll be chasing anybody for the division. Unfortunately, they do not own their first-round draft pick next year. That is in way of the Arizona Cardinals. So they have no reason to tank. I do think they will compete in quite a few games. I think that defense is the reason they compete. I'm not sold on CJ Stroud completely yet. I do like him. I think he's a young talent, and I do think he will develop into a pretty good QB. I can't get on board with the running back, though. I just can't. I can't do it. I'm going to keep going with that. I can't pronounce his name and say he's going to take over the backfield there, so we'll just stick to skill.
Okay. Right. Fair enough. All right, Brant, hit me with your last one.
So my last one, this is all a hunch. This is just a gut feeling. This is, and there's a lot in the feelings in this gut here.
Sure there is.
This is a guy, and I know that, it's been said, rookie tight ends are never anything special. Well, this one I think is going to be special. I think Dalton Kincaid takes over as the number 2 pass catcher in Buffalo, solidifies himself as a top 5 dynasty tight end, puts his name in those ranks with, guys like Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts and Travis Kelce and George Kittle and TJ Hawkinson. I think that you start talking of Dalton Kincaid being a top 5 dynasty tight end. And here's this is where I get a little spicy with it. He goes for over 1,000 yards this season and sees 9 total touchdowns this season. I think he gets 1,000 yards and 9 total touchdowns and solidifies himself as a top 5 dynasty tight end and a real threat in fantasy.
Obviously we haven't done our tight end rankings yet, Brent, but I think that would have to put him top 3, top 5 this coming season if those
and I believe he's going to.
I hope you're right. He's a guy I own stake in already. He's a guy I'm very excited about already. That would make mean for a huge season. Also for Josh Allen, if that comes to fruition from you, Brant. But that one's one I hope to see happen. It's just one I think takes a year or two before we get there. I don't think it happens this year for him. I think he's going to be used. But you do still have Diggs, you do still have Kraft, you do still have Gabe Davis. So there's going to be a sorting out period. It sounds like James Cook's going to be really involved in the passing game. I just hope there's enough left for a guy like Dalton Kincaid walking in the door to make himself fantasy relevant. Excuse me. And I hope you're right, Brent. Like I said, I'm relying on him in a few leagues this year.
Okay.
All right. I'm saving my absolute favorite one for last, Brant, or have saved it for last. This is one that I will say that I have teetered and tottered on this player's getting on his train for quite a while too. But I'm 100% there, Brant. We've had some great debates over this player between him and Antonio Gibson. And isn't it just perfect that right now I would argue Antonio Gibson's getting more time in the spotlight and in the news than this player is. And that's absolutely absurd. I find myself on the opposite end of the argument this time. Cam Akers, Brant, is a running back 1 in fantasy this season. Not the overall running back 1, but a running back 1. So a top 12 running back this season. Okay. You brought up weeks 13 through 18 for Najee. Weeks 13 through 18 last season for Cam Akers, he had 3 weeks as an RB1, including week 16 as the best fantasy running back of the week, which means he helped some folks get to championship games last year if you were brave enough to start him. His worst finish during that stretch was the running back 25. If you statted him out from that 6-game stretch and averaged it for the course of the season, Brant, I was astounded when I sat down and did this. 294 carries, 1,450 yards, 17 touchdowns, 1-7, 31 receptions, 285 or 280.5 yards receiving. And he would have been the RB4 last year if he did that over the course of the season. That is with an atrocious Baker Mayfield under center. That is with no wide receivers on the outside. Cooper Kupp was already hurt. Opposing defenses had one job when they played this team those last couple of weeks, and it was stop Cam Akers. They could not do it, Brant. I think we're finally going to see the season-long explosion from the Florida State running back standout that is Cam Akers. I think this year he plants his flag as a fantasy relevant running back. And by God, he's still young, Brant. He's not that old, even though he's been in the league for quite a while. This is a guy that's going to shoot up my dynasty rankings, and I already feel bad that I had him as low as I did last season.
This is a choo-choo train I've been on since the day he was drafted. I watched this Florida State film, and they had the worst offensive line in college football, and he still was able to put up great numbers. This is a guy I absolutely love. I have bought stake in him in a couple leagues that I have. He's a guy that I am all over in redraft leagues. And I 100% believe the rushing upside will be there. I hope he comes close to those numbers that you statted out, because we already know the PPR upside is going to come better with Baker out of town, because Baker doesn't check down. So, excuse me. So I believe that Cam Akers, and you are correct. I believe he will finish as an RB1 this year, and he's a guy that I absolutely now, mind you, I'm pretty sure he played Seattle's atrocious run defense during those weeks. It might have been that week. It might have been that week he finished that RB1. We could not do that one job, and that's because this guy is very explosive. He has no problem breaking tackles. He is absolutely phenomenal to watch. He's absolutely phenomenal for fantasy when he does play. This guy, I 100% am on board with that hot take, and give me Cam Akers in all my leagues right now. I've been trying to acquire him in a couple leagues. I have been unsuccessful, but I am holding on to him in my keeper league, and in our new dynasty league, I know I do own him right now.
Yeah, so he played Seattle twice in weeks 13 to 18. Week 13, he was the running back 8, and week 18, I'm sorry, he was the running back 11. His running back 1 week was against Denver, week 16, 23 carries, 118 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. So he did have some touchdowns in that game that bolstered him, but obviously that's part of it, right? You got to have touchdowns if you're going to be the running back 1 of the week. So
if you think about it, when you talk about the guys that finish inside the RB1, they all have multiple touchdown games. So, yes, you have to get the touchdowns in order to be up there.
And the promising thing, Brant, he gets to see her defense twice again this year, as well as
we're going to be better.
Cardinals, as well as the Arizona Cardinals defense.
They're not going to be better.
Is not going to be better. So I do like his conference games. I even think running against help me out here. The 49ers is going to be a little easier this year than it's been in years past. So I'm all over Cam Akers this year. I'm buying stock left and right. I obviously tried to make a trade for him in a dynasty league recently and didn't realize who owned him, and kind of walked back my own trades. You rejected one of them. I walked the other back knowing it wasn't going to happen, especially after I told you how passionate I was about him. You were going to raise the price on me to a point where I didn't want to pay it anyway. So, but yeah, I definitely think Cam Akers is a guy that I think wins people championships this season, especially at the draft price you're going to get him. He is going to be a late draft pick. I'm talking drafting him in the rounds of 6, 7, 8. This is going to be a guy who a lot of guys who go 0 RB are going to get as their first running back and are going to be very happy about doing so.
The guy that you did offer, though, I am pretty high on this year, just not as high. So
sure,
that one could have been in talks, but I don't think we would have ever came close.
We'll see. The season hasn't started yet. I might twist your arm a couple of times here and there. All right, Brant. I think that pretty well wraps us up for this week.
Yeah, I think it does. Don't forget, guys, go check out Underdog. Use promo code Holics. Get in there, check some of that out. We're going to play a little game next week and put a few more out for you on season long. We're going to try to get even more than just the 4 we put out today. I think we're going to try to get a few more out there. And throughout the season, it's a great time to do it. That's where we got all of our higher and lower stats on when we talked about them. So we definitely love it. We definitely enjoy talking about it.
Make sure you jump on and follow that new Facebook page as well to stay up to date with all things Fatboyz, with all things Fantasy Holics. Make sure you're on that. You don't want to miss these two fat faces when we go live during the season, because not only do we come at you with start sits, with picks of the week, we also come at you with our meals of the week. And that may be more important than anything else, Brent. You got to have a good spread when you're watching football.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But as always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.